Welcome to MELfeed.video. We are commencing a live web stream service via youtube.com from Echuca, Australia. We currently conduct these streams on Monday evenings, with other times to be added as more opportunities arise. Please visit our website MELfeed.video for further information. This web video project presents old and new community TV programs. Please enjoy your stay with MELfeed.video.
Welcome to NAT Chat. My name is Harry Mellos, and today we have a very special guest, author and psychologist Dr. Helen Kalaboukis. Helen, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Harry.
Well, Helen, before we enter into some of the discussions of your work, tell us how you got into psychology and what were the factors that led you into this work.
I've always wanted to help people. I know it sounds a bit too much, but I've been good with people. I like talking with people. I want to see change. I want to see people improve, get their full potential in life. So from very young, I was very good in working with people.
Oh, wonderful. They do say that it takes a special person to enter the field of psychology, helping and counselling people. Is this a true statement? Do you think you need to have a type of character in order to work in this area?
I don't think you need to be special. I think you need to be listening to people, willing to be there for people, and I think that's all it takes. You don't have to be any special.
Yes, but I know you also as a person, Helen, and you're a very caring person, and I'm asking the question from the background where that you are you're a carer of people, you're concerned about others' welfare, and I'm just wondering whether that is the typical characteristics of a counsellor and a psychologist.
A counsellor, yeah, you need to be with people and listen to people and understand and try to assist them or guide them. Psychologists, not really. If you're doing research, if you're doing assessments, but you need to have good people skills.
You do, yeah. Wonderful. And just a simple question: when you tell people the line of work in psychology that you do, how do they react? Do they speak to you differently once you've told them what you do?
Oh, in parties, yeah. Well, in parties they come and say, "Oh, I've got this problem and I've got this other problem." So generally, they want to tell you their problems, their secrets. It's not good on parties because you want to be there not to hear problems. But otherwise,
what about in the social area when you actually have a discussion with someone socially and you tell them the line of work that you do? Do they react differently? Are they more protective?
They're interested. They want to know what I'm doing, how long I've been doing the work, how experienced I am, what sort of type of work or people I see.
Yes.
So people are interested.
Yes, but they don't act differently towards you.
Sometimes they do.
Okay.
Sometimes they're careful.
That's the interesting part.
I've met a CEO a few weeks ago, and he was pouring the water. And he says, "I know now you're looking at my motor skills." And I said, "No, I don't." "And you're looking how good I am." I said, "No, I don't. We don't evaluate people all the time. We don't assess people.
Yes.
Not until we have to do it."
Yes, of course.
But people, some people are very careful.
Yes, and how do you address that? Do you defend yourself, or do you? How do you actually?
Oh, defense won't help. I'll just say I'm here. I don't work after hours. If I'm for a meeting, I don't assess people. I do it only when it's my job and people are in my office and we have to do the real work. Otherwise, I'm just a normal person.
Yes.
I leave the psychologist behind. I don't need it.
And what about at home, when you finish a day at home? How does the whole day affect the family environment? How do you actually handle that?
Oh, probably the first years. The first years, yes, you try to, and you're trained very well not to take all the issues at work to home. But sometimes you can't help it, especially if you have very difficult cases. You have some things with you. Now, after 25 years of working as a psychologist, I'm very experienced. I leave it all at work, go home. I don't think they will ever affect the way I am at home, or with my friends, or with my social things.
So you've adjusted, and you're able to leave work at work and at home. Well, that's very good, because I know that psychologists and to a smaller degree counsellors have a difficult time adjusting from work to home, especially at the beginning.
The first years, yes. After a few years, you experience, you know, this is work, this is home, this is social life.
Okay, and have there been any times in some of the cases that you hear and help people with where it was difficult to let go, it was difficult, and you've brought in a couple of the assessment or the essence of what was going on back to a different environment, whether it's home or elsewhere?
Well, when I was working with abused women and children, that was very hard work. I did it for 3 years. It was very difficult. There were times I could carry that with me, all the things I've seen and I've heard, and all the abuse that so many women and so many kids have suffered. So that was very hard.
I'm sure it would. Abused women, did you say? Yeah. Yes, and that. How long did you last in that area?
3 years.
3 years, and it was tolling on you, was it?
It was. At the end, yes, it was very much. You need to do debriefing, you need to have good supervision. There's so much you receive, you are receptive. You receive a lot of this, and you need to do something with that. Supervision usually is very good, or debriefing. Or
debriefing, yeah. Oh, did you see the warning signs for yourself, or were you told that by your family that hey mum, you know, we see there's a difference now in you, or how did you see the warning signs?
Mainly at work. Although my kids were very clear, they didn't want a psychologist at home, they wanted a mom at home, so I kept all my work in the office. But yeah, it was good supervision, good management, that they realized I was burning out, and I changed area. Yes. It is a very difficult area.
And how long have you been working as a psychologist, Helen?
25 years, Harry. It's
25
a long
years.
time. It's
well,
a
you
long
don't
time.
look a day over 40.
Thank you. I started at 15.
Yeah, well done, well done. And what area? You've also lectured in any area? Or
Yeah.
yes?
I was lecturing at Monash.
At Monash, yeah.
Yes.
How long was that for?
5 years.
Yes.
And I was a manager at Swinburne for quite a few years, actually, 14 years, of the counselling service. So I was supervising a lot of psychologists. And we had a lot of international students. Very interesting
to
look after students. But they were a lot of highly functioning groups. So it was very different from abused women and children to highly functioning students of a university.
I see.
Very different work.
It sounds very, very interesting. We've just ran out of time for the moment. We're going to go into a break, and we'll be back shortly with Helen Kalaboukas, author and psychologist.
We always liked to play chess together ever since we were little. He was always a better player than me. When I was diagnosed with Pompe's disease in 2002, I was told that my life expectancy was going to be poor, and my condition deteriorated rapidly before I was able to start treatment. My brother and I both suffered from the disease. But now I consider myself the fortunate one. My brother spent the last 2 years of his life in hospital. He didn't have access to this wonderful treatment that should be available to everybody. The world just keeps getting smaller as you progressively lose the ability to walk. So your world shrinks, and then gradually you realise, I haven't been to the supermarket in 6 months. I'm 59 now, and every year I can see my daughter grow up is a blessing. I believe my treatment's made this possible.
To learn more and help those living with Pompe's disease, register at australianpompe.com.
Which one are you going to get? Just a lady? Boy. Oh, you can't look. Just a minute. Okay. All right.
Just needs a bit of discipline. Can I help you with your bags?
Thank you.
Autism. Change your reactions, change your actions.
turned 30 in 2020. We are planning a celebration night with a book and a special TV show about our history. If you're a past member or a volunteer of NAT, we would love to hear from you. For more details, visit the website nat30years.info and find out how you can help celebrate 30 years of media for the community. The 30th anniversary of Northern Access Television. Let's celebrate in 2020.
Welcome back to NAT Chat. With us is Dr. Psychologist Helen Kalaboukis. And Helen, I believe that you are an author of a book titled Emotional Intelligence and Leadership. Can you tell us a little bit about what does that mean? Do you need to be intelligent to have this book, to read this book?
Not at all. Although it's about a research, a training program we've done at Swinburne for 5 years. It was a training program we developed with Professor Constell, and then we provided the training for a lot of people, about 300 people, and then we evaluated the program to see whether or not we can improve emotional intelligence. The research showed that yes, we can improve, which is the good news really,
yes.
Because academic intelligence, intellectual, we cannot really improve. Whereas emotional intelligence we can.
Yes. Okay, just for the layperson out there, what is really emotional intelligence? What is that? How can you briefly describe what it is and what it does?
It is a kind of intelligence. We know we have a lot of different intelligence.
Yes.
The academic, the musical intelligence. The emotional is how we express our emotions. How good are we to perceive the emotions of other people, let's say in a meeting, let's say with someone we converse with, and how well we can manage our own negative emotions and how well we can manage the emotions of other people as well.
I see. So what I'm hearing is that our emotions have their own intelligence that enables us to actually perform certain tasks through that emotion. Is that what you're saying?
Our emotions are the way they are, but we can understand them better, express them better, or learn to manage them better, especially negative emotions like anger, like sadness.
I see.
And then of course that goes then to depression, to anxiety. Fear is a big emotion and brings anxiety. So if we learn to manage the emotions better, mental health, psychological health is improves.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about the program in itself. How does the program enable normal people who are listening, our listeners today, how can they know more about what the subject's about?
It basically says that we can become, we can improve our emotional intelligence, the way we experience our emotions, express them, the way we manage negative emotions, and therefore we can be better persons. And it also looks into leadership. It looks as to whether we can train better leaders. We can have better leaders, managers, and therefore we can have a better world if everybody is performing better at a personal level or at a community group level.
And how is it about regulating the emotions that we already have? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. The emotions are there. We can regulate them better.
Yeah, and not allow our emotions to take control over the situation, but actually be in control of our emotions. Is that what you're saying?
The negative emotions.
The negative emotions.
The emotions that that don't do any good in our lives. Whereas we can accentuate, we can appreciate positive emotions. We can be more positive. Show that in our lives with other people. They say, and there's a lot of literature on this, that people can be more successful at the personal level, at the work level, in their social life.
I see.
So we can be better people. Yeah. That's what.
So you're saying that we can use these emotional intelligence and leadership to strengthen and transform people by a program or by learning more about what it is? Yeah. How do people actually how can people be transformed? How can they be built up in their emotions in order to be more adaptive to normal situations?
Well, first they need to want to change.
Yes.
They need to want to improve.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to, that's all. I mean, as a counsellor, you know that if they want to change, they can improve, they can have a better life, enjoy life more, be more productive, succeed more in their work, in the job, whatever they do.
I see. And the program, is it a period of time? How long does the program take? You talked about a program that you developed.
The training is about 3 full days or 8 2-hour sessions. It is a product of Swinburne.
Okay.
It has all the people who have done it. They've found they learned a lot. It improved their personal life, their relationships, and their job, their career.
Oh, great! So our listeners are able to tap into some of these programs that you've helped establish, and are able to use it for their benefit. But there's a prerequisite from what I'm hearing, and that is that they need to be wanted, or they need to want to transform and to change.
Yeah.
Because all of us, there's parts of all of us, as I'm sure you are well aware, that perhaps we don't like about ourselves, and we wish that we behave differently, and we wish that we were able to control our emotions. This program helps the listeners and those people who have issues like this?
Yes, definitely. I believe we should start teaching that to a lot younger ages, like primary school.
Okay.
If kids learn to not to be afraid of the emotions, to be able to express positive emotions, to manage difficult emotions like being hurt or being sad or feeling a big loss, because kids are very sensitive, then I believe we're going to have better people, better functioning individuals later on in life. But I believe we need to start a lot earlier in primary school.
Okay, so it's something that
it's never too late.
Yeah, it's never too late. Yeah,
it's never too late. But we can start.
It gives us hope as well for a little older children.
Yes, grown-up children. Yeah, but yeah.
Could you just give me a little insight as to when you're dealing with young children? You say the program can begin that early. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yes.
What would children of say 2 or 3 or 4 or 5? How would they begin? Maybe older?
Primary school.
Primary school. Okay. So primary school. How would they begin to use the program of emotional intelligence and perhaps leadership?
At this point, we've trained teachers, a lot of teachers, to go there and teach the kids. So, first of all, the teachers need to be trained.
I see.
To be able not to be afraid of the emotions, to be able to express emotions, encourage the kids, express positive and negative emotions in a functioning way.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about positive and negative emotions, but we've run out of time. We need to go for a break. We'll see you shortly. We'll have a short break and return back to NAT Chat.
If you were living on the streets, wouldn't you want more than just your best friend to keep you safe, warm and dry? Donate to Backpack Bed for Homeless and give warm, waterproof protection and dignity tonight. Call 1300 OzHelp.
Joy, well-being, community, inclusion.
Special Olympics is a global movement for people with an intellectual disability, creating a world of inclusion and community through sport, where every person is accepted and welcomed, regardless of ability. One athlete, one volunteer, one family member at a time, helping to make the world a better place. Join the inclusion revolution by supporting Special Olympics.
And choose to include.
We want to show you what's dangerous about this river, but we can't. That's the problem. You can't see ice-cold water, snags like tree branches or strong currents. So in enjoying our rivers, remember, wear a life jacket, avoid alcohol around water, never swim alone, and learn how to save a life. Our rivers are beautiful, but more Australians drown here than anywhere else. It's simple. Respect the river. Head to royallifesaving.com.au/respect the river for more information.
Transports of Distant Delight is a mixed selection of transportation pictures from here and there and almost everywhere, but not quite. Some quirky, some mundane, some from the past, perhaps reflecting a transit system that has vanished into history, and some from thriving transport entities that continue to endure despite the constant pressures from the all-pervasive motorcar. Enjoy.
Welcome back to NAT Chat. With us is author and psychologist Helen Kalaboukis. Helen, earlier on we were discussing positive and negative emotions. Can you give us an example of what these emotions, positive and negative, are?
In simple words, positive emotions are the emotions that make us feel good, like joy, like enthusiasm, like happy.
Yeah.
Satisfied, and negative emotions are the ones who don't make us feel good, and the very healthy emotions like being sad, being angry, feeling lost or afraid. Fear is another basic, very basic emotion, and this can affect us, and they are part of our lives, but at some point can be make our life very difficult, our work very difficult, or our relationships.
Okay.
So when they start affecting us, we need to do something about it.
I see. So what you're saying is that we can overdose in negative emotions, and it doesn't help us live. But if I asked you a question related to positive emotions, can an overdose of positive emotions also have a negative effect? Or do we need more of it?
I think we need more of it. We don't learn to feel good.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. We learn everything else but feel good from very young age.
Yes.
I think it's about learning emotions. We learn the negative. We learn to be afraid or sad or jealous or competitive. They all, and then we don't learn to feel good.
Okay. Well, pardon my skeptical approach, but I'm just wondering, when you have lots of positive emotions, does that promote like self-centeredness or anything like that from your experience, or can you clarify that for me? I'm just wondering.
Not to the expense that we don't think of other people and we sort of become so selfish and so self-centered.
Okay.
But I believe it's good to have good, positive emotions. It's important to feel good. It's very good for our body and our mind.
Wonderful. And what happens when we have a lot of negative emotions? What are the symptoms, and what can that lead us to?
There is research saying that it leads us to bad health.
Physical bad health.
Physical bad health.
Yeah.
A lot of psychosomatic illnesses are related to that. We cannot achieve as much in our life. We don't enjoy life as much. Our relationships suffer a lot.
Yeah.
So it does have a great effect.
That is so interesting. So I'm hearing that you're saying negative emotions can have physical effects, actual physical effects.
Yeah.
So how we feel affects our physical being.
Yes.
Yes. Well, that's very interesting, because normally when people get a symptom of a physical symptom, they never relate it to emotions. But you're saying they are collaborated. Is that right?
Anxiety is fear, and make people have difficulties in breathing. They can't breathe. They cannot function very well. Sometimes when it gets worse, they can't leave the house. They can't go to work. They can't talk with other people. All these anxieties are very related to fear.
Okay. And what are some basic steps to feeling good about ourselves and not to continue in that negative state?
Well, the basic is it's possible to feel good. We need to learn to feel good more often, to allow ourselves to have positive feelings. I think we need to teach it at a young age, or as grown-ups we need to do that more. Physical exercise helps. Social life helps. And then if things get worse, we need to see a specialist. We need to see a counselor, psychologist. before it gets too bad or out of control.
And how do people recognize that it's getting out of control? When it affects their everyday living? Or?
Yeah. It affects their relationships, their work. They feel unhappy, they feel stressed, they worried all the time, they sad, they get into depression.
Yeah.
The earlier they do something about it, the better it is. It's easier also to overcome it.
Well, that's a wonderful topic, Helen, because I'm thinking there's a lot of viewers out there who think that seeing a psychologist has a stigma attached of mental disorder in a psychic way. But every one of us can experience positive or negative emotions, and you don't have to be mentally insane to see a psychologist or a counsellor. Is that right?
It is very right. A lot of people confuse with psychiatrists and mental illness and the stigma of mental illness. But we all go through crises in our lives. We all go through stages that we need to talk to someone. If we have good friends and supportive friends, that's great. Sometimes we need to talk to a more specialized person. And there's no stigma. All normal people may need at some point to speak to someone else. Psychologists speak to other psychologists if we are stressed.
Right. Yes.
Or we're going through a difficult time. Life has a lot of challenges.
And thank you, Helen. That makes a lot of sense. But you also mentioned that there is the family that can contribute positively to our well-being and to our positive emotions. How important is our family interaction that leads us to feeling good about ourselves?
Family is very important, but the lucky people have good supportive families, and a lot of people don't have good supportive families. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
We can analyze that, but I don't think we have. So if they have good families, that's excellent. If not, it's good to have good friends, supportive friends. But because people this age, we're very isolated. A lot of people feel lonely. A lot of people don't have other people.
Yes.
It's very important to reach out, to go to a group, talk to someone.
Yes.
There's always a way out. There's always things
Yeah.
we can do to improve our lives.
Yeah, isolation, I'd like to talk more about that, but briefly, isolation, what does isolation bring to normal everyday people?
It's a trap. A lot more people these days feel more isolated. Then they get into depression. Then it can lead to other bigger problems, mental health problems. So it's important to stop as early as possible. There's always people out there, the groups.
Okay.
People need to reach out.
And Helen, if some of our viewers need to come and see a psychologist like yourself, what would be the procedure? Would they need to go and see a GP first for a referral and then come and see you? Is that how it works?
Through Medicare.
Through Medicare, yeah.
Through Medicare, they provide up to 10 sessions every year, so there's help there. Costs nothing.
Yes, so it is beneficial for everyday living, and it's provided by Medicare.
Yeah, for serious problems, of course, but there's so many people out there with depression.
Yeah. Thank you, Helen. I'm hoping that there are some listeners out there who take your advice and seek help if they're feeling bad about themselves. So thank you for the program. Thank you for being part of NAT Chat.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, and to all our viewers, thank you for another week, and we'll hopefully see you again next week.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed Video, a different sort of TV.
Alleluia. Om Mani Padme Om. welcome. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and today we're speaking with Dr. Mick Pope, and he's an eco-theologian and a meteorologist. An eco-theologian, Mick.
Yeah, it's an interesting title, but I think a very necessary one in the present age we find ourselves with issues like climate change and habitat destruction and so on. Essentially, what a theologian is somebody who talks about God and reflects in a structured way about what the Bible says and how that relates to events in the world. The eco-emphasis is to say particularly, let's think about theology, and in particular from my standpoint from the Christian religion, not just in terms of God and human beings, society and so on, but the broader picture of the created world. Yeah. So what people often call the environment, but theologically you should think about the creation, because I believe in God the Creator, who made everything that is, and that includes small furry animals, trees, the oceans, the atmosphere and so on. And so it's something I feel that it's necessary to do, to put that topic front and centre, because in a lot of Christians' thinking it isn't necessarily there. Hopefully one day it becomes a redundant title and people understand that the creation is not just a stage on which there's a drama between human beings and God, but the entire shebang is all part of God's big plan.
Now I'm sure you weren't born with a stamp in the middle of your forehead, eco-theologian. How did it all grow? As a young boy, what was your spiritual perspective? Where were you at?
As a young boy, I think like a lot of kids of my generation, probably less so now. I think about my 11-year-old son, and he loves his Nintendo and his books, and probably doesn't spend as much time outside as I did. There's a natural connection to the world around us. I mean, young boys like me, there's a bug. I grew up in, I spent a couple of years in a house in southern Brisbane, and there was a frill-neck lizard in the front and green tree frogs in the banana palm out the back, and so that's my playground. These are animals that I can look at and be fascinated by, other than my Labrador dog that's wandering around. I suppose, without sounding pretentious, I was reasonably bright as a kid and always encouraged to read and to study. And one of the early books I remember from borrowing from the local library was a book about Mexican walking fish, which I know now is an amphibian, an axolotl, but back then it's a fish and it walks. What sense does that make? And so always things about the world around me were grabbing my attention and just stirred something within me. I remember a holiday in Cairns when I was 7 and collecting shells off the beach, and because I was always encouraged to think and to study and encouraged in my interests. My mother told me about university. Bam, I'm going to be a marine biologist. A bit later on it was I'm going to be an ornithologist, and then it became later in school an astronomer. So there was always an interest in the world around me, and I guess a passion for learning, a passion for being out and about, and just feeling that kind of connection. When I reflect upon that now backwards, I think about what Pope John Paul II talks about as an ecological conversion. And I think for children, particularly boys, but children in general who are exposed to the world around them, it's an unnecessary step. It just happens. And so for me, that's been one part of the journey. Like a lot of kids, there was RE at school. People would come in and they'd talk about religion, and it all sounded very comforting. And I knew God was important to my mum, but no one explained who Jesus was. It didn't crystallise for me until I reached university. So as a later high school student, I got into the martial arts because I was kind of weak and weedy and not very good at ball sports. And I really latched on to strong male role models and the spiritual aspect of that. So I was kind of a soft Buddhist, kind of into Zen in a very kind of casual kind of way through my martial arts. And I guess you read some Buddhist writing and it seems compatible with that kind of eco spirituality, if you like. But then when I got to university and someone explained Jesus to me, who he was and what the cross was said to have achieved, then the penny dropped for me. But it was very much what was going on in my heart and my personal sense of guilt and concern about sin and very much fear of judgment. And while that quote unquote got me in the kingdom, fear is not very sustaining of a life and a spiritual life. And certainly when I think about the whole climate change debate, while a certain amount of fear is healthy, that's not sustaining either. And so the rest of my intervening. In fact, today marks it's now 2014. I became a Christian in 1988 on this day. So it's my spiritual birthday.
Happy spiritual birthday.
Thank you very much. Has been a journey of how do I put my interest in science, and at the time it was astrophysics and cosmology and all these kind of things about the universe, with my religion, and how do I bring in my concern for nature, or the whole discovery of that being a creation is a step in that process. How do I crystallise these two things together? And so that's been my quest, if you like. And I went from studying maths to astrophysics and then ending up with a master's degree. What do I do with my life? I became a meteorologist, and so there's kind of been a journey up and then a journey back down to earth. Yeah. And so that's again formed part of that, the eco-theological journey, because I've come at things like climate change from both perspectives, from the science perspective and looking at not just what a shock jock might say or a blog on the internet or throwaway line from a politician, but what peer-reviewed science has said, and then come at it from the other side and thought, what does the Bible have to say about the world around us, about the creation, and its importance to us as it sustains us, and its importance to God as His creation. And so that the two are now starting to come together, and I'm starting to speak and write and feel like that's not a journey at the end, but as a pilgrim travelling through life, you know, there's been a confluence. Yes. There's some things going on in my head now. They kind of make more sense than they did 20 odd years ago.
It certainly sounds like a pilgrimage to a yet to be determined point.
Yeah, well, I think that yet to be determined point ultimately is the return of Christ, and from the Christian perspective, and putting everything in order, putting everything to rights. It's just that in my mind now, that's not simply about sheep and goats, and some go to heaven and some go to hell. Judgment, not that I'm dismissing that narrative, not that it's true, but also, hang on, creation gets a say in this, creation gets sorted out. It's not just about me and Jesus, as so many Christians often will think about, and that's not wrong. To be a Christian is to have a personal relationship with Jesus. Lots of people leave that in terms of, well, that means, you know, that I tithe and that I pray and read my Bible and so on, and that's all right, but what about issues of peace, justice and creation care?
And sometimes look at your watch, because we're out of time.
I don't have a watch.
There you go. We'll be back in a moment.
Take it from me, one punch can be lethal. Thrown in anger like this, without warning, without any gloves, it can be deadly. One punch can end his life and ruin yours. It takes grunt to throw it, it takes guts to walk away.
This bank is helping to save lives. Every year, 500,000 Victorians have no idea where their next meal is coming from. Food Bank Victoria works with farmers, supermarkets and manufacturers to make sure their surplus stock ends up here, to be distributed to those in need. But all of this is not enough. Right now, this bank needs interest, your interest, to support Victorians in need. If you can help, visit foodbankvictoria.org.au.
Every minute.
Every hour.
Every mother and father.
Every sister and brother.
Every son and every daughter.
Everyone you see.
Everyone you cheer.
Everyone you watch.
And everyone you hear.
Everyone you meet.
Everyone you know.
Everyone you love.
Everyone is affected.
Reach out and get connected.
Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with Dr. Mick Pope. He's an eco-theologian and a meteorologist. As a child, we'll go back there, and you've got, I think you said, a frill-necked lizard in the front yard and a green tree frog in the back. Where did it start that you started to have a sense of wonderment? How did you see those? Those two creatures are totally different. How did you bring them together as a child? Was it?
It's hard to put a finger on that. They're just, they're there, and you know that they're just a different part of your world. I mean, as a small child, it's all about cartoons and whatever else is on television and your toys and going to school and this, that and the other. I suspect because I've been able to put my finger on it that I'm an introvert over the years, and it was a long voyage of discovery in itself, that time on my own to think was always important. So I can fairly confidently say for much of my childhood my best friend was my dog. Just the way of it. And so I guess it was just being outside on my own, and there's something it's a very different part of my world. It doesn't fit kind of anywhere else, and just the fascination, the way they move. You ever watched a frill-necked lizard? It puts the frills up on its neck, and it's when it's alarmed, and you watch it eating ants and carrying on. And green tree frogs, they sat there on a leaf and they're stuck there. I mean, I don't have suckers on my fingers. So it's just the otherness of them. I guess too, they're also relatively safe. They're relatively tame, so it's not growing up in Alaska with bears wandering through your yard. So there's a level of threat. I mean, as an older child and living on properties on farms, we had brown snakes, and they put the fear of God into me, quite literally. So there's that sense of danger. So it was something I can get close to, something that's very different from me, and they just move and behave in very different manners. And it's not that I sat there thinking, what's it thinking?
No.
Not as a child, you're not that deeply reflective. It's just, that's really cool. I think there's something in us, within us, that really wants to relate to not just other people, but to other creatures. And of course, ultimately to God. Now, it's always this quest outside of ourselves. And so for me, they were just there and just inherently fascinating.
Yeah, thanks for that. You use the term otherness. What does that mean to you now? What does otherness mean to you now in that context of other parts of creation?
It means things to me now that are of inherent value in of themselves. They have worth, they have significance. I read something like Psalm 104, and you have to remember that the Psalms are the prayer book, the hymnal of the people of God from the times of Israel through the era of the church. And it speaks very profoundly about how these things matter to God, how God delights in them. It's a hymn to biodiversity, the sheer range of creatures that exist, as well as their sheer abundance, the numbers of things. And so otherness means now something that I can't quite have the conversation I'm having with you now, but I can relate to in some way, shape or form. Or it might just exist that I never see it, I never have anything to do with it, and yet it has value to God in the terms of that organic whole that is creation.
That comes close to the concept of an environmental audit, doesn't it, in the sense that it's got value to God, it's not just values to human beings.
That's right. I mean, not everything can be reduced to economics. And you think about something like Psalm 104 that's written in an age before documentaries and ecotourism, and it talks about the lions as being fed by God and being of value to Him. They have their place in the created order. Well, sometimes lions ate people's sheep, right? But God's still saying, these things are of value, they're important, they have their place. Everything, if you like, has its place in the created order. And our relationship is sometimes a friendly one, sometimes it's not, but we bear God's image, and we do that uniquely, but that doesn't say that the rest of the created order doesn't matter to God. So when Jesus says that you're more important than sparrows, He still says that God knows what happens to sparrows, that sparrows are still important. Just that we uniquely bear God's image and the responsibilities that go with that.
That spins off into lilies in the field and that stuff as well. You obviously mix with other eco-theologians. Are you familiar with their evolution into the place where they're at, and is there any similarity with your own background?
I mean, there can be. Often for people, like I'm co-authoring a book on climate change called The Climate of Hope. And Claire my co-author, before she became a Christian, she'd read a lot of the scientific literature and get very depressed about it, and became a Christian, didn't know quite how it sat. I think childbirth is always a part of that journey. I mean, for me too, it's not that I gave birth, right? But I have an 11-year-old and I worry about his future. So those kind of things give you an even stronger attachment to concern about the future. So I think every eco-theologian's journey is different, but it's that growing awareness that things aren't quite right. And you know, we come from different parts of the theological spectrum, if you like, but the concern is always the same. What are we doing to the world? What's human beings' responsibility? What role have we played in that? What should we be doing?
And do they mainly consider God to be the overseer, the creator, that in doing the wrong thing by a part of the ecological system, you are in fact doing the wrong thing by God? Is that
I think that's
strong theme?
Yeah, I think that's a view that's coming out. It's also important to note that when we damage the creation, we often indirectly or directly damage ourselves. Climate change is a case in point. Psalm 104 talks about it raining and that watering the wilderness, but also human agriculture. So if you warm the planet, you change rainfall patterns, you influence both. Murray-Darling Basin is a classic example. If that dries up, it's all the trees that draw water from the Murray-Darling Basin, it's the fish in the Murray-Darling Basin, it's the birds, and then it's the irrigation system as well. So it's not as if eco-theology is concerned with the creation just for its own sake. That's a major discovery in Christianity, I think, in the 20th and 21st century, but also that we're intimately tied to it. Our fates are bound together, which is why Paul in Romans 8 can say the creation groans, waiting for us to be revealed, because its liberation is tied up in ours.
Yes, it's interesting, the parallels between a lot of this and quotations which come from First Peoples, like the American Indians. I think it's Black Eagle or something, who makes these commentaries, and Aboriginal theology is deeply immersed in it. So perhaps we're rediscovering something.
We're catching up with them. And a real narrative of Indigenous peoples talk about country, and it's not ownership, but it's it's almost partnership. That we owe the land a debt, and it owes us a debt. So it's a relationship more than a
there's
possession.
an unspoken partnership between ourselves and time, and we've just run out of it. We'll be back in a moment.
We reckon one of the most powerful things in the world is this sausage, because a sausage can do just about anything. It helps people to walk, see and hear, supports families after fire, drought and flood, and even helps plant trees in our community. Our sausages are working to cure cancer, helping farmers in tough times, and connecting people who are new to a community. And at the same time that they're doing all that, they're nurturing the leaders of tomorrow while building friendships that last a lifetime. Yep, these humble sausages are more powerful than you can believe. They're working wonders in our community. And at Lions, so can you. Lions Australia, we serve more than sausages.
So, you think you're ready for this?
To take on the world? Why not?
Welcome welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with Dr. Mick Pope. And he's an eco-theologian and a meteorologist. Mick, when you were talking about the way that you've evolved, and you said that it wasn't until university really that you started to put Jesus in any context within it. Take us from that point.
From that point, it was a case of, it took a long, long time, but the initial point was, what's the significance of the crucifixion? The whole Good Friday story. And it was put in pretty stark terms, and terms I wouldn't necessarily use directly anymore. You know, the classic illustration is on one side you have human beings and the other side you have God. So there's a recognition that God is transcendent, He's other, He's holy, and so has a character that you just don't march in and knock on the front door and say, "G'day God, how's it going?" And then the classic thing is that it's, how do you get there? Is it religion? Is it your own hard work or efforts? And the answer is no, there's a problem. And the problem that separates us from God is human sin. It goes back to Genesis 3, for example. People argue over the nature of that and how that fits into a whole bunch of scientific schemes. But back then, fairly simple issue. God's over here, you're over here. You can't achieve this yourself. The crucifixion achieves that by dealing with the problem of sin. And so that's, as I said earlier, that's pretty much individualistic. It leaves you wondering, well, how does that relate to other issues? And so within a good 6 months of that, I was asking myself, well, okay, so Jesus is Redeemer. So He redeems humanity, He saves humanity, and that's the language that's used. And my Pentecostal friends would say, "Are you saved?" And the more evangelicals would say, "Have you become a Christian?" So that's the same event but different language. And I thought, well, if God is creator as well, and you know, it's funny, even I'm thinking about God the Father as creator, thinking in a Trinitarian framework, but not Jesus as the creator. So there's a dichotomy already. Then how does my faith affect my studies? And I took up first year philosophy to kind of pursue the more philosophical aspects of life. And so again, very long time before it, you know, you come to texts like Colossians chapter 1, and it says that all things, not just human beings, but all things were created through Jesus and for Him. And by Him all things are reconciled to God. All things. And it's like, well, that's not just me, that's all things. Let's take the text literally and seriously. That means the created order as well. And so then it starts to become this, well, how does that work out in practice? And then you go to texts like Romans chapter 8, as I talked about earlier, where the return of Jesus and the resurrection, and that's what's missing with so many Christians' theology. And I even thought about that term. I've got to the point where language of heaven's a bit frustrating, because people think in Christianity that the point of being a Christian is to go to heaven when you die and not go to hell. Where the Bible talks in very physical terms that our future hope is a resurrected body, because that's what Jesus had. That's how we know that sins are forgiven. That's how we know we have a hope in the future. Hence the title of our book, Hope for Creation. A Climate of Hope. The program I'm involved in called Hope for Creation, which is an annual day of prayer. So yeah, the penny finally dropped when I start to read texts like that don't just focus on individual harps and clouds type, you know, Larson cartoon type thing, which a lot of I carried in my head, and a lot of Christians, I think, subconsciously carry that in their head and don't think about a future for the birds and the trees and the mountains and what it might be like to have a resurrection body. I mean, that's a difficult thing to think about.
Thank you for that's a very thorough and interesting answer. So that the whole sacredness, how does the sacredness of the Holy Trinity, if you like, but the sacredness of Jesus particularly, roll over into the other? Do you perceive the other as sacred in the same context?
That comes, I think, from, it's interesting, Genesis chapter 1. What do people argue about in Genesis chapter 1? Did it take 6 days? Is the earth 10,000 years old? Did God use evolution? A couple of key things about that in its ancient Near Eastern context. The first, at the end of the 6 days of creation, God rests. What does that mean? Is he's an Englishman putting his feet up, having a cup of tea and some scones? The answer is no. If you read something like Psalm 132, it talks about God resting in the temple in Jerusalem, from where He ruled. And so it's meant to be a really strong hint that Genesis chapter 1 is describing the whole of creation as a temple. At the same time saying the sun, moon and stars, they're not gods, as in the contemporary myths. God says and it happens. They do what they're told. They're not rogue deities. But the key thing, the real kicker, is that the very last thing that's created is man, Adam and Eve. The very last thing you put in a temple in the ancient Near East and in many temples today are the idols, the representations of the deity. So the thrust of Genesis chapter 1 is that the whole of creation is a temple to God. We represent God to the rest of creation as his idols, his images. And so that doesn't make creation divine, as if I go and worship trees. But to care for the trees is an act of worship because they are in some sense sacred.
Yes.
That doesn't oppose fair use. It doesn't mean that you can't cut them down for timber and so on and so forth. But to exterminate whole forests, to exterminate whole species, isn't that something of a blasphemy if the creation is generally sacred? So that entire picture then is that God makes something other than himself for community with himself. I mean, the triune God is Father, Son and Holy Spirit in perfect relationship. Doesn't need anything else. Creates something else to have a relationship with. And it isn't just human beings, it's non-human creatures as well, who are going about their daily business of being fruitful and multiplying and swarming and thronging, is itself an act of praise to God.
And in there's you need to be taking care of the fact of the arguments that people have about, I think I'm right, there's no hierarchy there, or is there a hierarchy? You're suggesting there's a hierarchy?
It isn't hierarchy insofar as somehow we are more special in the sense we've been chosen. And I think you need to understand something like Psalm 8, it's a direct choice by God. You know that great psalm, he looks up at the stars and wonders, what significance are human beings? In one sense, none. But God chooses us to bear that significance, to care for everything else.
I tell you what, we'll be looking up at the stars and saying, what's the relevance of time here? Now, we're on a topic which can go on, and would you please come back next week and we'll follow through with this?
Absolutely love to.
Terrific, thank you very much. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allahu
RSPCA, for all creatures, great and small.
Hallelujah. Om Mani Padme Om.
Welcome. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we have Dr. Mick Pope back with us, and he's an eco-theologian and a meteorologist. Mick, thanks for coming back.
My pleasure.
But before we start, I'd like to read something which is a quotation from one of your frequent speeches, and it's about eco-missiology. And it goes like this: eco-missiology sees mission in terms of reconciliation at all levels. It recognises that the God who creates is also the God who redeems all that he has made. This holistic mission includes both eco-justice for the poor as well as care for creation for its own sake. Now, apart from that being a deeply meaningful statement, you remember it, do you?
Yeah.
It was just let's pick up eco-justice, because that's a rather interesting concept. How does that?
The church has, I guess, traditionally understood that justice is important and aid and development issues are important. So you've only got to think about people like Wilberforce and the anti-slavery movement in the UK. So the church has been very much pro-human values. When some sectors of the church, some Christians think about environment, there's the tendency to see that, you put forests ahead of people, for example. And sometimes there are tensions, obviously, with development. But when you come to think about eco-justice and think about something like climate change, for example, my lifestyle, and I live a comfortable Western lifestyle, I have a car which I drive, and you switch on the light and you get lights, you can burn gas and you can cook. So we have a comfortable life with all the things that we need. But all those things produce greenhouse gases. And so the West has been developing for 150 years and producing these greenhouse gases. And it's just been something that we haven't seen and haven't taken into account. Now, if you think about the people of Tuvalu, for example, Tuvaluans live on coral atolls. They're within 5 metres of sea level. One of the things that happens to water when it gets hot is it expands. So sea level has been rising, and it's risen about 20 centimetres since the start of the Industrial Revolution. And so Tuvaluans are now experiencing the impacts of that. Not only does a higher sea level have an impact when you get a large tide or a tropical cyclone, but even just that salt water percolates through the coral that the atoll's made of. There's a famous picture of a woman, and she's holding a child, and she's ankle deep in water in the middle of this coral atoll, and it's not washed over the edge as if building a seawall would achieve a positive outcome. It's percolated through the coral, and that means that they can't grow their taro, their main staple crop, in the ground. They have to grow it in tins. So that's an example of eco-injustice, if you like, where my lifestyle has had an impact upon the climate, which has in turn affected someone else's lifestyle. And so if we're concerned about inequality in markets or slavery or the conditions under which our iPhones or our shoes or whatever items of clothing are produced in countries like China or Bangladesh, why aren't we concerned about issues of how my lifestyle, not just where I choose to buy things, but my very existence, in a sense, impacts upon other people? And so that's where we need to think holistically about, how do I reduce my carbon footprint? How do I reduce my footprint on the planet? Because not only is that an act of Christian discipleship, I mean, when was the last time you heard a sermon on gluttony, for example? You just don't hear it. Well, what about energy gluttony? Or resources gluttony? And the fact that then affects Tuvaluans, who are my brothers and sisters in Christ, or the Bangladeshis, or people in Africa, or whatever else. And it's when you're living so close to the sea, or you're so agriculturally dependent and dependent upon the weather, and all of that is changing due to climate change, which science tells us is largely driven by human beings. 97% of all scientists involved in climate change research agree that we are the major cause. Then that's an issue of justice. We need to start looking for solutions to that problem.
Right. And some of the solutions would be rather unpalatable to the people living the comfortable Western style. How do you sell a story like that?
It's difficult, isn't it? People, I mean, there are all sorts of concerns. So, for example, do we consume too much meat? Because cows and sheep produce a lot of methane as a greenhouse gas. That's fine and dandy. Is too much meat bad for your health? So if I cut down the amount of meat that I eat, there's a co-benefit in terms of my health. People worry if we cut out coal that there will be a great loss to the Australian industry, but what if we become world leaders in solar. I mean, we have a lot of sunshine to spare, right? Or we take the time to invest properly in renewable energy and develop new technologies. There's plenty of employment to be had there. The Chinese should be very well aware of the impacts of coal, not just in terms of greenhouse gases, but air quality. So there's a co-benefit straight away. You can actually breathe and don't die of some respiratory disease. So there's all manner of things where making positive changes to climate change are both going to have co-benefits in other spheres, but also going to be simple acts of Christian discipleship, of frugality and not being a glutton and so on and so forth. That we've become caught up in the cultural narrative of growth and accumulation. So I think it's the time of the church to lead the charge in this, because we know what repentance means. Let's apply it to issues of eco-justice.
Yeah, wonderful drive to pursue. How, though, would you look at, like, the Tuvaluans? They're near to here, and probably many people would know about them, but and their predicament. They're mainly Christians, I presume. But what about if you start to talk about Africa and you start to talk about places which, say, Australians are not that familiar with? How do you get the engine going for people to pick up the fact that this tribal person is their brother? You're absolutely right. Where does this happen? Does it happen from the pulpit? Does it happen from the media? It's a massive question.
I certainly think it should happen from the pulpit. Genesis chapter 1 again, we're all made in the image of God, and that's where commands against murder derive from, that we have this common humanity. If you're an atheist even, empathy is something that humans typically share unless you're psychologically deficient in some way, shape or form. You know, we have this common ancestry, if you will. So most philosophical systems, particularly I think the Christian tradition, we have a common humanity. But even still, the same thing that's affecting them, I think it was, off the top of my head, 2009, a heat wave in Melbourne. And over a 4 or 5 day period, 300 more people died of heat-related stress than would normally do for that period of time. So it hits there. Think about your children and your grandchildren, intergenerational justice. Not just the people who are alive now are being impacted and are going to be impacted, but those in the future.
You just mentioned an important word there before you. I think you mentioned time, and let's respect it. We'll be back in a moment.
Wow, she looks like she had a big night.
Yeah. Nice glasses, Alice.
Hey, Alice. Do you want me to put the blinds down?
Autism. Change your reactions, change your actions.
Two out of 3 toddler pool drownings are caused by open or faulty pool gates. Water, it's only safe while you're watching. Keep watch.
Tick, 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 fashion.
Tick, 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 fun.
Tick, 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 food.
Tick, 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 festivals.
All make up 15 fabulous minutes.
In a half-hour special.
Presented to you by Jacqueline and Steve.
Every week. Time's up.
Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with Dr. Mick Pope. He's an eco-theologian and a meteorologist. And a bloggist, or a blogger.
Blogger, yes.
A blogger, rather, a bloggist. Now you've got, is it 4 blogs?
I think it's 3. Oh, well,
3.
There's one that's kind of not active, that's Arosha. Maybe we can talk about that later. But
oh, yeah.
3 that I maintain regularly. One that's Ethos Environment. One's kind of my anything that comes to mind. And one that I started to keep my own personal Bible reading going.
Oh, okay.
And so I blogged pretty much every day through Lent, which was really helpful. And for myself and other people found some of my reflections worthwhile too.
So with a blog like this, how does that, is it an internal process that drives you, a passion that drives you in relation to it?
Once you make any level of discovery of something you think is important, then you want to share it. And I think that the whole blogosphere thing, although it's a chaotic mess at times, and people are free to say anything they like, and they do, yes. I find it a helpful process to tease out my own thoughts. Sometimes it's a nice way of dialoguing with other people as well. And but at the end of the day, it's about getting ideas out there, and particularly if you feel isolated at times, and to be a Christian and have ecological concern, sometimes you can do.
Yes.
Is to have that shared sense of community. And a blog's a good way to do that.
Do you get many responses?
Directly on the blog, often not. I think there's been a technical problem with the blog site that I use, and responses don't come in. I've been called a pagan by a pastor on the mid-north coast of New South Wales for suggesting that Earth Hour was a good thing that Christians could observe.
Good heavens.
And over Twitter, I've sometimes been told that I need to keep my Christian faith out of this whole issue, so that the hard left think that Christianity has nothing helpful to say, and even if it does, it's a bit late. And I can understand and appreciate that sentiment, but I actually think we've got a lot to say.
Yes.
About time we got to the front of things. So, but amongst my own community, often I get some encouragement and so on. And when I spoke at the climate change rally late last year, I put the text of the speech up, and they got about 400 hits, so a number of people were reading that. So I think it's an important vehicle to say, not just share within the Christian community, but to say those outside that particular faith community, look, there are Christians here who really think this is important. We're on board, we're alongside with you, and it opens up plenty of opportunities for conversations about the Christian faith.
Yes, it does, and this process that you're going through of creating a concept of a broader other and humanity in that entire context is a new way of looking at it, really, isn't it? And it's creating new ground.
I think so. I mean, but what it does, and we touched upon this, I think last time we met, is that there's a balance to be made, because I think within the biblical text there's a real sense that we're made from the dust like the other animals. We are creatures of God like the other animals, and yet we've been given this special role, this special duty.
Yes.
And I think if you think about it in terms of duty and not just rights, that's something that needs to be made and might not come from, say, a secular narrative.
That's right.
Who wants to flatten everything.
Yes.
And then you're left with the kind of quandary that we've created a whole bunch of problems, but if you flatten things too much, how do we solve it? Other than maybe just quietly go out of existence.
Yeah.
And who wants to do that?
Yes, there's this sense of duty. It comes through people like Suzuki and others, where there's no question about it at all. It is what God requires you to do, and that's pretty healthy.
And there's a real strong sense, I think, that we shouldn't be afraid of listening to people from outside our faith tradition or none when they're dragging us along. I said in the introduction to our book to Claire, I think that in many ways Christians like myself, eco-theologians, should be thankful to non-Christian environmentalists, because they form part of the reason I've reached the point that I have.
Yes, that's right. It creates a conversation, and there's no point having a conversation with people who believe the same as you do, because there won't be any conversation. There's nothing to say. You mentioned before the Earth Day and the negative commentary from that pastor. In Ethos Environment, which is one of your blogs, you actually talk about Earth Day and as a doxology, a hymn of praise to God. How did you feel when this pastor said that? Did that open up the potential that there might be a large portion of the society might be opposed to the view that you're making, or did you think he was just an odd person?
Sadly not. I'm very much well aware of that. I remember somebody I knew on Facebook, it was Earth Hour, and they said they were going to celebrate Energy Hour, and they were going to turn on all the devices in their house and have them going. And I thought, what if we were talking about gluttony of food? You know, would you? So it's there are people whose worldview, their picture of what the faith represents, and how they view what scientists are telling them, that's so different. But I just refuse. You know, the same person read my climate rally speech, and they were genuinely shocked. I think, you're presenting this as the only viable Christian option. I said it's the only viable scientific option to accept the fact that we're changing the planet, we're warming the planet and changing its climate. How else should you respond theologically to that then? I can't think of any other that earth care is an act of praise and worship, respecting the planet that we've been given to look after, to be part of in a community with other creatures as well as with each other. It's time to shake off this, it's just me and God, or it's just me and my wants and needs. Not denying that any of those things are valid, but there's more to it than that.
This is immensely powerful, and there's a huge amount of courage in what you're saying. How are you organising? What's the spearhead of this movement?
Well, there's a few things. I guess I am writing a book, and we're trying to get ideas out there. And the book, Climate of Hope, is meant to be for Christians who might be a little bit confused and haven't dug deeply. So it's not a theological textbook, and it's not a science textbook, but it's meant to be very accessible. And likewise, to give to somebody outside of the faith tradition to say, there are some Christians who are concerned about this. Ethos Environment, which is part of Ethos, the EA Centre for Christianity and Society, organises conferences and dialogues. I was recently part of a series of meetings that's economists and ecologists, because it's funny, economy and ecology both come from the same Greek root, oikos, for house. So it's all part of the one household. It's not to draw a sharp line down the middle as if there's culture and nature, but they're all part of the same created whole.
Yes.
And I'm also part of something known as the Friends of Arosha, which is trying to get Arosha established in Australia. It's an actual creation care group. Let's revegetate some places. Let's dig some holes and plant some trees.
That'll take time to do that. We're out of it. We'll be back in a moment.
I'm able to dream, I'm able to smile, I'm able to grow, and I'll go the extra mile, one day at a time. So put your hands together, we can change lives forever. Together, we're able.
Able Australia. Together, we're able.
We've all seen this one time or another. We may even have done it ourselves. But inhaling balloon gas is very dangerous and can be fatal. The helium in balloon gas acts as an asphyxiant, and when you inhale, it displaces the oxygen in your lungs. Balloon gas is safe in balloons and when you release it in a well-ventilated area and in a safe manner. So the next time you see some sucker about to inhale balloon gas, or you think it's going to be a laugh, stop and be gas-wise.
Are you playing renovation roulette? I'm John Jarrett. Now I know that deadly asbestos lies hidden in 1/3 of Aussie homes. It can be found in any home built or renovated before 1987. Lurking in walls, under floor covering, behind tiles, in roofing. Asbestos, it was used everywhere. So if you're a renovator or a tradie, you could be risking your life and the lives of others. Remember, go slow. Asbestos, it's a no-go. Visit asbestosawareness.com.au to learn what you need to know.
Had enough of the bad news about carbon dioxide and climate change? Wood is one solution. Trees take CO2 from the air and store it in their wood. They're also renewable, unlike concrete and steel. But the wood you choose should be recycled or from certified plantations or forests. This helps protect areas of high conservation value So next time you're building or buying something, make it wood and do your world some good.
Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with Dr. Mick Pope. He's an eco-theologian and a meteorologist. Mick, I mentioned about the sharp end of what's driving it. This organisation, Ethos, what's that?
Ethos is a joint venture between the Zadok Institute, which has been around since the 1960s and has a quarterly publication and so on, and the Evangelical Alliance, which has been around for a long time as well. And they used to have a public theology department, so public theology, issues of sexuality and politics and environment and so on. And it seemed like a natural marriage for the two to come together. And so now Ethos is the EA Centre for Christianity and Society, and has a number of working groups or think tanks, of which environment is one. And so I've been heading it up since we started a few years ago.
And what sort of people are part of Ethos? Have you got a board or a management group?
There is a board, and I used to be part of it, and they booted me off and said, you've done your time and you should be doing writing and speaking and so on rather than running that. In the past we had an actuary, a former actuary as the chair of that, and theologians and of various stripes and people from economic backgrounds and so on. So it's been a suite of people, just Christians who are concerned, thinking Christianly about a whole broad range of issues.
And what's the unanimity about it? Do people tend to be herded down the one line, or do you have people who are going, no, we go this way or we go that way?
Oh, I don't know, there's a lot of inattention, but we had I think I said before, we had a series of meetings between economists and ecologists, and one of the people involved has been involved in promoting the nuclear industry, for example, for a number of years. So they see nuclear power as a safe green alternative.
Okay.
And there's by no means an agreement on that.
That's right.
But one of the things that comes from our Zadok past is to offer the opportunity for dialogue and a variety of views. So when we talked about that in the issue of Zadok perspectives, we had Helen Caldecott, who's a physician who's been a strident anti-nuclear campaigner, Right One Piece, and Ian Hore-Lacey, who's been a proponent of the nuclear industry on the other side. And so there's dialogue and tension, and people get to see a variety of views, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I think it would be true to say that Ethos in general accepts the science of climate change, for example. So you don't have those kind of dichotomies, but then our audiences are going to be quite diverse. So I imagine some of our readership from the Evangelical Alliance end of things might have some issues, and that's fine too.
And you edit Zadok magazines, don't you? Magazine or annual or whatever it is.
It's a quarterly publication. I'm the reviews editor, so I get to play Father Christmas. It's order you a book and send it out to you, and you write a book review for me. So, and I write for it as well. But I have edited a couple of issues. But Gordon Priest, who's my boss there, is a PhD in ethics, and he edits it.
That's an interesting one, ethics. In one of your blogs, I think you quote Peter Singer, and he's an ethicist, of course, but he's secular, isn't he? How does he, or does he have anything to say on the environmental issues at the level that you're dealing with?
It's a very different perspective. I think we need to listen to those other voices. I remember many years ago being an undergraduate at Monash University, and he debated, when he was still on faculty, he debated an AOG pastor, and they were talking about whether or not Christianity was an ethical framework for environment and so on. And he said, well, Jesus cast demons into the swine and they drowned, and he withered a fig tree. So apart from the fact that I don't believe in God, I don't see him as being an outstanding example of genuine ethics. But you can see behind that already his presupposition that maybe swine and fig trees matter more than people. He's a very interesting person. I can't claim to have read a lot of him, but I think it's someone we need to listen to because he has a profound concern for the created order. But again, as we were saying earlier, too much of that flattening to say that an infant chimpanzee is more value than a child with Down syndrome, and that you could happily perform infanticide on the other. And this is where the image of God comes into play. So you have to read very widely and have to be in dialogue. It doesn't mean that you swallow everything that they say, and you can't forcefully disagree.
No, and forceful disagreement just opens up. Excuse me while I shuffle through this, but forceful disagreement reminds me of something that you said in one of your blogs, and this is you're talking about the ways in which Christians can respond, and you say our weapons are letter writing, protests, marches, boycotts, votes, prayers, sermons, books, tracts, and this is the key bit: as a Christian, I cannot raise my hand against someone, anyone, or do them harm. Now that's a pacifist statement. You know, that could fit in with any of the pacifist groups comfortably. How do you sustain that in the Christian context? Where does that come from?
Well, I think that comes from Jesus ultimately. I mean, I suppose I should qualify that I wouldn't call myself a full-blown pacifist. I see the need for a police force to restrain violence. I don't know that I fully buy what's called just war theory, but there have been very few wars that I would consider genuinely just. But let's think about it. How does Jesus defeat sin, the world, and the devil? By dying on a cross. You don't get much more non-violent than that. But there are a few things that he talks about. So he says that if someone strikes you on the right cheek, offer them the left also. But this isn't being a doormat. This is the way in which in the ancient world I'd strike you on the right cheek would be to use the back of my hand, because this hand's reserved for other things, right? So if you turn the other cheek and say, strike me with the front of the hand, strike me as an equal, it's a very visible act of protest against injustice. It's just at the end of the day, it's if you're made in the image of God, we're trying to work for a common future of peace and justice and so on, then how can that be achieved through violence? Well, in a very limited sense, perhaps, but ultimately. When you use violence to combat violence, violence always wins. So I think of things like I believe it was a tactic in the past, you'd put bits of metal inside a tree, and so when the foresters came along to use their chainsaws, things would fling out. Now that's abhorrent. It's a different thing though if I chain myself to the tree and say, this stand of trees actually has significance and value.
Look, it has value, and what you're talking about has great value, thanks Mick. But we have come to the end of the program, and I'd really want to thank you greatly for your insight from a specialist perspective. You're not just pulling it out of the air, you've got the knowledge to do so, and appreciate it. So perhaps at some later time we could speak again.
I'd love to come back.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allahu
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
The following program carries an MA classification and may contain adult themes and coarse language. MELfeed.video advises that it is suitable for viewers aged 15 plus.
In Brisbane, I missed my usual tour buddy. On the plane seat next to me, he sent a text to him about a strangely empty seat. right beside me. He replied, "Stop trying to write my eulogy prematurely." And he may have had a point, because it wasn't the first time. In Brisbane, I talked with her for a long time and made no mention of having a girlfriend, now that you mention it. In Brisbane, knowing why they call it Bris Vegas, now with a thirst for conversation, a lack of self-esteem so dense you'd lose your shoe in it. And I'm clinging to them with a pathetically 21st century desperation, as obvious as a television accent, as wide as the Asian continent, as long as a year in these same pack straps, and as thick as the lonely planets for India, Australia, Turkey, and Spain, all rolled into one, the kind of desperation you can smell in overly rehearsed, casual anecdote stories about what I've been doing in Brisbane. But no one wants that polish. They want person. I've got nothing in stock to give them. And they flee from me like cockroaches from under a suddenly upturned bin.
So it's two cute bar girls at the Star, my hangover, the smallest smoking courtyard ever was imagined, only one seat and I'm taking it, to watch the city bump, thinking of Edwina blush. Sydney, I get a kick out of you. Vodka shots and dry cleaning tags, lazy afternoons and no cocaine. I was told of such abundance. The usual exaggerations. The tour is over. I've been poorer, smellier, more atrocious. Oh, I've been gutter surfing, wretched, homeless people offering me change, bleeding on my last cigarette paper, 50 cents to Wednesday, calling home out of desperation. Hank Chinaski, where are you? I'm not so tough, but been around a while. Understood snatches of conversation, first beers, last whiskies, never realised I was on the mean streets of Belfast till the danger passed, shrugged at my suit and painted nails, muttered wanker, not quite under its breath. Between first beer and last breath, the man said it would all be worth it. I trusted him, still do. Shelton Lee, where are you? Never needed you more than now, and you're there in the corner of my eye, rolling a number, chatting up the bar girl just to keep your silver tongue in practice. My friend, you give me barstools and bullshit in the best possible way. But the page is long, the ink is thinning, the glass is empty. One more cigarette and we'll sing it one more time for you, me and Paul Newman. One more time with feeling, aching heart and shaking hand, the one promise I'll never break.
I promised her I'd bring her back a present. She didn't ask me to, but I wanted to. I'm wandering around Sydney. What can I get for her? What can I do for her? What do I know about her? She likes guys who have green eyes. 3 months together, I've been away for half of that. I wanted to learn to say I love you in Italian. Say it to her in her own language, no room for misunderstanding of what that means. But I am 30 years old and remember the false assumptions, the mistakes made based on bad translations of that phrase before. Hours pass like the traffic. I think about calling and asking her what is she interested in, maybe get a clue about what it is I might be able to give her. Instead, start to write things down, paper mumble explanations as to why I don't already know all this stuff about her. Why I have an Italian phrase book and I haven't used it yet. I'm liking what I write. I fall in love with my own words about love and forget to call her. I'm out of time. I have to get to the airport. I'm coming home again and I have absolutely nothing for her.
15 years, 15 years, 15 years, 15 fucking years. 15 years, 7 relationships, 3 knockouts, 4, 3 against, 1 unanimous decision due to bloodletting. 72 various sexual partners, 2 play scripts performed, 6 plays acted in, 1 band gig, 4 fist fights, 9,020 joints, 43,800 beers, 108,000 cigarettes, 23 zines, 35 poems published, 2 books, 5 boxes of books under 1 bed, 1 spoken word CD, 1,660 packets of 2-minute noodles, 45 casual jobs, 2,160 poetry readings, 336 featured readings, 68 festivals, more kilometres than I care to remember or calculate, little sleep and no rest, life in a nutshell. I am not unproud, nor am I howling at the moon in awe of myself. It's just a life. Life always looks more extreme when you put it on paper, and that, after all, is our job. I bet your job is weird. Some days.
Does anybody remember the locust plague we had a couple of weeks ago? Still coming, yeah. Well, this is a poem. One of my cats caught a grasshopper and I wrote a poem about it. And I'm going to read it out to you now because I'm kind of anal like that. This is called Report on the Recent Locust Plague by Lieutenant Harriet, co-signed by Lieutenant Beatrice. Beatrice is Harriet's sister. We have 2 cats, as you may have guessed. Well, it was just like this, miss. I was minding me own business and patrolling with me sis, miss, as a good cat ought to do, when I saw with me own eye, miss, up in the ruddy sky, miss, a dark cloud on the fly, miss, a old grasshopper crew. Well, they landed with a bump, miss, with a boom and bang and thump, miss, a battalion on the jump, miss, grasshoppers on the op. Well, I said then to me sis, miss, bloody hell, we can't have this, miss, because it really was a miss, and we thought it ought to stop. So we boxed them and we fought them, miss. We chased them and we caught them, miss. What a lesson we then taught them, miss. We turned them on their ear. And if you cry, I don't believe ya, miss, we've a present here to leave you, miss. No, your eyes will not deceive you, miss. Here's one of the blighters here.
Every time you shop, the choices you make affect our community. It is important to select Australian products made by Aussie-owned companies. Our food security means quality and peace of mind. Your purchasing power keeps your dollars multiplying in our economy, keeping jobs, profits and decisions being made right here, which is better for your children.
So the next time you buy, look for the AusBuy logo. It makes all the difference.
Come on, fellas. Let's get down there.
Hang on. Where's Dave?
Oh, hey, fellas. What do you think? Pretty cool, eh?
Real men look out for each other. Don't let your mates drink and drown.
I had the boys over for a barbecue the day before our final. Anyway, Steve rocks up, no beer, and he brought his model girlfriend. He was showing off, going on about how he kicked the winning goal in the semis, you know. I must have gotten a bit distracted and I put his steak on the same plate the raw meat had been on. Anyway, we lost the final. Steve had to go off sick during the game. I mean, it's not my fault. I mean, who brings their girlfriend to a bloke's barbie anyway?
Northern Access Television will turn 30 in 2020. We are planning a celebration night with a book and a special TV show about our history. If you're a past member or a volunteer of NAT, we would love to hear from you. For more details, visit the website nat30years.info and find out how you can help celebrate 30 years of media for the community. The 30th anniversary of Northern Access Television. Let's celebrate in 2020.
This one was picked out by one of the crowd here. Welcome all. It's called Unclean. I wash my rancid dishes in my bathroom sink. I puke every morning in my kitchen. And my place fucking stinks. So I'm told. But it's just the same to me. I live in a shithole. I wash my clothes every 3 months. And I only shower once a week. I'm unhygienic. I'm unhygienic. I'm unhygienic. I'm unhygienic. Empty beer bottles all around. And empty food cans, cat food cans. Empty packs of cigs. All my pets are dead. And there's tissues piling up beside my bed. And TV. I dream dirty thoughts when I sleep. I'm unhygienic. I'm unhygienic.
This is something I finished editing this afternoon. It's called The Vicar. The Vicar, though neither wheelchair bound nor a man of the cloth, uses this ruse to baffle the passing tourists into placing coins into the collection tin that he so vigorously shakes in their faces, demanding money for the daft and pointing to his legs and dog collar. He makes enough dosh with this shenanigan to fuel his enormous thirst at the Embalmer's Orchard Saturday jam session, and sometimes enough to purchase the odd midweek VAT. Now, a VAT, for those who are uninformed, is equal to two jugs and a pint, and they're for personal use only, not for sharing. The Vicar has been known to remark, wheelchairs are great for your stature. They keep the weight off your gout. And, the sympathy. He's saving up for a new electric one, and with the 2 invalid pensions and the government concessions he's managed to swindle through the fake church, he should have it in a couple of weeks. The Embalmer's Orchard Hotel building was once a church and is still registered as such. Over the years, the building has changed hands often and has been used as a school, an insane asylum and a home for incurable alcoholics. When Tubby Pudenda, the publican, purchased the place about 30 years ago, it was being used as an embalmer's workshop for the funeral parlour next door. A logical progression, one might say, and the Vicar had seen it all. He was the last baby to be baptised when the place was a church, and he was the last pupil of the school to be expelled, apparently for sodomising the school's pet mountain goat, and has been here ever since, even landing the job of preserving the dead when no longer classified himself as an incurable alcoholic or insane. The Vicar is as cunning as a fox and knows how to exploit any system. The building is, however, due to some council oversight, still registered as a church. So over a very drunken night at the Orchard, the Church for the Consumption of the Holy Spirit was born, and the Vicar was to be the resident priest. The church idea had some fortuitous benefits for Tubby the publican as well. Being a place of worship means that most of the liquor licensing laws applied to venues elsewhere are made redundant inside the Orchard. This means that Tubby can make and sell his own brew in whatever size glasses he wants, charge whatever price he wants, and can choose to stay open as long as people can still manage to drink. Communion on a Sunday also means he can serve the underage, as long as they are members of the church. At last count, the church had 150 members, all under the legal drinking age, and all baptised with the Holy Spirit, which consists of 2 parts formaldehyde and 1 part vodka, followed by 2 pints of the black. The black, another dark and mysterious brew of Tubby's, was created via a botched attempt at making stout, using an ergo derivative instead of yeast to start the fermentation process. This brew is both potent and psychedelic, and has caused the odd case of St. Anthony's fire, with the resultant gangrene, which, with a bit of minor amputation, has proved completely curable. The black has earned its name because when you manage to finish a pint of the stuff, a black film is left on the inside of the glass, which needs to be cleaned off with steel wool before reuse. It is also very easy to spot an imbiber of the black. One only has to look at the colour of the teeth, as mere toothpaste will not remove the film. And after a few pints of the black, though, you are really past caring. Sunday communion is a very drunken, testosterone-charged and messy affair. It has forced Tubby to allow only 50 underage communers into the room at one time and to close the Orchard's communion room every Monday for major repairs. Another law that Tubby rigorously enforces on the communers is drink your 2 pints of the black and then bugger off to the end of the queue. This rationalisation has resulted in much damage to the outside of the Orchard, as more than 100 of the underage wait impatiently and violently queuing for admittance and readmittance to communion. Communion Day also happens to be the busiest day at the local hospital and has caused the local constabulary to hire extra staff to be placed on embalmer's duty. The rest of the town is dead, as every living soul is in the Orchard seeking the Holy Spirit. The huge cash flow generated on a Sunday, by the way, doesn't all go to Tubby. Gosh no, most of it goes to a special charity fund arranged by the mayor of the local council to keep the church oversight overseen. Thank you.
The F word. You say that I'm flippant, a frivolous fluvy, a flippity-jibbity, fool-drinking ouzo, a featherhead fiend in frau and percuck. Well, FYI, friend, you can go get fire-trucked. You say I'm a flop, that I'm full of flapdoodle, a flatulent fathead, not worth one furky toodle, a flabby old fizzer, a frump fezzy wig. Well, FYI, friend, I don't give a fig. You say I'm a failure, a fibber, a foe, a Facebook friend only, a flea brain for a foe. Well, FYI, friend, you old so-and-so, what the frick, what the frack, what the fudge would you know? Thank you very much.
It's called It Really Could Happen. There may or may not be, if we're lucky, another big war, short in duration, to annihilate nearly every nation. For a lot of the Western or industrialised or prosperous world has been inward-looking or selfish in a way since the 1960s or so, only to make others feel low. It may not have been because of too much money around, or for about the last 50 years too, with trade, diplomacy, economy sound, but to prepare and be aware.
Hey guys, what'd you like?
Coffee, thanks.
2 coffees, please. Coffees. What kind of coffee would he like?
Go cappuccino.
Cappuccino. What can I get for you?
I'll have a coffee, thanks.
Yeah, 2 coffees, please. Awesome. And what kind of coffee would you like?
Cappuccino, thanks.
2 cappuccinos.
Autism. Change your reactions, change your actions.
This season, we need your help to control Queensland fruit fly in our region. Your infested fruit is destroying your neighbour's harvest and the livelihood of our orchardists and their families. Pick up and dispose of fallen fruit. Infected fruit in your backyard is a breeding ground for fruit fly. Monitor fruit fly numbers by hanging traps in your fruit trees. Traps can be purchased at your local hardware stores. Net your fruit trees and susceptible vegetables with fruit fly specific netting. Contact us for information.
The tax office can take money directly out of people's accounts, but you're not allowed to know. The elderly are being abused and neglected in nursing homes, but you're not allowed to know. The government can raid journalists for reporting the truth if it says you're not allowed to know. It couldn't happen in Australia. It's happening now. When the government hides the truth from you, what are they covering up? Authorised by Australia's Right to Know, Sydney.
Tick, 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 fashion.
Tick, 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 fun.
Tick, 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 food.
Tick, 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 festivals.
All make up 15 fabulous minutes.
In a half-hour special.
Presented to you by Jacqueline and Steve.
Every week. Time's up.
This is, because it was the anniversary of the Eureka Stockade, I'm going to go with Fight for a Fair Go. There's a fracture in the line, a breakout the troopers don't need. There's an Indian file campsite out towards Eureka Lead. There's a captain's call to arm where the first arts building stands, assembled to assault the stockade and cut the flag from where it hangs. There's cumulus clouds up high, the licence fees are steep. There's unlicensed miners frustrated by colonial greed. There's a charge to the barricade, an uprising fuelled by anger. There's a horseman of apocalypse spreading malcontent and danger. There's shots fired to and fro and the ground's irrigated red. There's Fitzgerald drawing sword, cutting down a hand-stitched flag. And there's a rebellion down the hill and troopers dispensing law. How many did Dr. Wells heal of those fighting for a fair go? Now there's a repair in the line where the first arts building stands. There's a large glass casing where the 8-pointed stars hang. There's a lot of years gone by, different stories being told. There's books and souvenirs about Ballarat and its gold. And there's a Southern Cross swaying from cranes on construction sites. And there's true blue fighting spirit left in our culture to keep up a fair fight.
Go Aussie go. We played hard to get this far. We set our goals to play our stars. We placed our hearts on our boots, shoot through the power with the power in the foot. There's an anthem in our heart, we'll sing forever. There's a ball in our soul, we'll play together. There's the fame of 19 lighting fires in our heart. I'm glad to be Australian, playing in the World Cup. We're a long way from home, we know we're not alone. The supporters have followed along, we'll hear our country song. There's a flag in our heart, we'll play forever. There's a ball in our soul, let's sing together. Go Aussie go, we know what you're playing for. Go Aussie go, the World Cup once more. Go Aussie go, go Aussie go, Aussie go, Aussie go. Go Aussie go, Aussie go, Aussie go.
You are the same as I am. You had a dream once, and still do. After a show, if only a single person comes up and tells me they like what they heard, then I still dream. I still live, own myself, my life. What you call self-obsessed, I call self-possessed. So I come to you from the other side of that line to tell you, not to tell me that dreams don't matter. Don't tell me you can't do it. Don't tell me that you're past it. Don't tell me you never mastered it yet. So you picked up a paintbrush once and found out in 5 minutes you couldn't paint a Picasso straight off the bat. Now you say, I can't draw. Well, fuck you! Because that sentiment insults the rest of us who have dreamed we are impossible things. And guess what? Waking dreams don't fucking come easy. So I come to you from the other side of that line to tell you it is possible. Pursuing is living that dream, and if that's as close as you ever get, you've got a lot further in making that attempt than just sitting there waiting for your own death. And I have dreamt myself as an impossible thing. I'm an unpractical man. I've never been published, I never won a slam, but here I stand and I'm still itching to be sticking it to the man. So dream, write, fuck, read, run, have fun, fight for what you want, take what you need, work until it bleeds, struggle until it heeds, and you're on your knees still chasing that dream. Make your life more than a mediocre effort. Because the only other thing life is offering you is a one-way trip that ends on a permanent
graveyard shift.
Graveyard shift. This is called the afterlife. See, graveyard shift, afterlife, we're very clever. Let's get on with it.
After about 3 hours sleep.
After their microphones were taken away from them in front of the crowd.
After painting nails for $1, vainly attempting to draw attention to their CDs.
And books. Step right up and take a look.
Make us an offer.
We can't refuse.
After saying, why didn't we make T-shirts or stickers or badges?
We do need stinking badges.
After making the mistake of using up the entire bar tab before going on stage.
After counting the amount of beret wearers in the audience and running out of fingers.
After the money ran out.
After the goodwill abused and the faith shattered.
After turning the word fuckhead into a verb, an adjective, and a life philosophy.
After small-town disbelief that Cold Chisel wrote poems.
After talking philosophy with some very drunk teenagers at a Hungry Jack's drive-thru in some town.
Missing the last ferry and sleeping on the jetty.
Waiting for the first train, sleeping on the platform.
After getting lost on the way back to Lismore.
After driving the uninsured rental car all night, watching that windscreen crack get bigger and bigger.
And bigger.
After spending all year on and off the road.
Living off dead air and empty applause.
After having been there to see the best
and worst performance poets in Australia.
After Randall lost the map.
After Steve thought you had the map.
After Randall last had the map.
Which was before you had the map.
After... I don't even know what a map looks like.
After the fact.
After the fact.
Where no one will believe us even if we were telling the truth.
After visiting Wagga Wagga.
Coming home south, screaming bloodless curses.
At Wagga Wagga. After the spotlight drops. Walk away long enough to breathe home air into these road-worn tires.
And in the aftermath, you realize how caught up in this you have become. Being yourself on a stage. Two friends with nothing else to do but keep writing and waiting for it all to start again.
It never ends. The starting again.
Thank you.
Get active, get social, get on a roll. For more info, visit skateaustralia.org.au.
William Tyrrell was abducted from his nana's home on the New South Wales mid-north coast on the 12th of September 2014. And somebody knows who did it. Do you? There is a $1 million reward for information that leads police to William. That's 1 million reasons to make the call. Contact Crime Stoppers now. 1800 333 000. Make the call.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
Are you ready to rumba? Because we are here at Rumba, one of Melbourne's biggest nights.
tonight. You ready for this?
Yeah.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
Are you guys ready for this? Mr. Lover, lover. Mr. Lover, lover. Don't hurt yourself, baby. Mr. Lover, lover. Sex it under.
Well, tonight's got everybody. We've got Blue, Vanessa Rossi, Tina Arena. Craig Davis is playing right now. We've got Emma Bunton, we've got Shaggy, Human Nature, absolutely everybody. A few thousand screaming fans to add to the ambience of tonight. So this is what Rumba's all about, one of the biggest events in Melbourne. It's quite awesome. Now, if you haven't been to a concert, this is the one concert you should go to. Absolutely sensational. Now, we're going to go back to the main room because we're tripping back and forth. We're actually here on the main floor, and then we go backstage and have a look at the guests that are going to be on the stage tonight. So let's check it out. It's Rumba. Well, welcome Shaggy to Rumba. Now, are you looking forward to Rumba?
Yeah, it's cool, man. I'm happy there's a lot of people out there. So.
And when did you arrive to Australia?
Just got in last night, so I'm still kind of jet lagged right now. If you hear me slagging on my speech, it's not because I had too much weed, it's because I'm tired.
You're also known to walk through the crowd before you have a performance. Have you had the chance to do that tonight?
I didn't have much time to do that. You know what I mean? And my disguise didn't come in time. I was going to dress up like I was Kylie Minogue.
Do you normally dress as Kylie Minogue?
Normally dress up? No, this would have been my first. Been an overly exaggerated Kylie Minogue, though. You know what I mean? She'd have cellulites and shit like that first, bellies and whatnot. You know?
What do you think of Australian girls there?
I think they're gorgeous. They've always been gorgeous. It's my third time here. You know what I mean? Do you think I came back for the weather?
Shaggy, you use a lot of beautiful women in your clips. Is that a reflection on your life?
I wish. But I celebrate women, and I like to put them in the videos, and you know, what else is there to write about? Politics and religion. You know, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about relationships and you know, how the effect that a woman might have in a man's life, and a woman would have on everybody's lives.
In the past, you've used a lot of guests in your music. Will you be inviting anybody on the next album?
I don't do nobody famous, because the last person I dealt with famous was Janet Jackson. She was a real bitch.
Well, thanks, Shaggy. Enjoy the show. We'll have a look out on stage now as Shaggy gives a performance of a lifetime. Have a look. You look too hot there. You're holding up. Been drinking? Why not? You're going to faint.
I'm alright.
How long you been here?
About
7 hours.
7 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, only 7 more to go then, really?
Yeah.
You better get some. You're not moving from this spot the whole day, have you? No. So you're not going to eat, you're not going to drink, but you're going to scream a lot.
Yeah.
So who's your favourite performer?
Craig David.
Oh, everybody's waiting for him, and he's up next, isn't he?
Tell me, are you with me? Oh yeah. Well, everybody's feeling right.
It is totally going off here. We're downstairs in the mosh pit. How are you?
Good.
So what brings you here? Who do you want to see?
Craig David and Shaggy.
Why these two?
They're best here.
They're the best here. So you've been waiting here how long?
From the start.
From the start. It seems like everybody's been here from the start. So you're going to scream?
Yeah.
So give us your best scream. Come on, for Craig Davis.
Yeah.
Oh, you can do better than that. Come on.
No, we can't.
You can't. Yay, Craig Davis. So you're going to dance?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah? You're going to sing along?
Yep. Yeah.
What is his song? Sing one.
No way.
No way? Can't sing.
So what you keep Black Tony, surrounded by other people moving their body, we be keeping that flavor in the air. Big shout to the people around the side, the front and the rear. This is gonna be one hell of a year, and there's no way that I'm the end.
How long you been here?
Since 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
In the morning?
Yeah.
You're going to stay right to the stumps, aren't you?
Yep. Right to the end.
So who's on next?
Australia's most celebrated. Tina Arena. Yep.
Care
And
for her?
then huh?
That's all right?
Yeah.
No, you're going that. Not Tina Arena. Thanks, Tina, for joining us as well. You had a fantastic performance out there. How was it up on stage?
It was really great. I couldn't hear a thing because I have in-ears on, so I unfortunately lose a lot of the ambience of the room, of the auditorium. That's really frustrating for me because then I have to really isolate myself from everything else, and that's tough.
Can you really tell up on stage what the reaction of the people are?
Well, it's too big. Look, it's so big, it's really hard. You can only really see maybe 100 yards in front of you, then beyond that, everything becomes a bit of a blur.
Who chose your clothes? They look fantastic.
Well, Angel chose the outfit, my stylist.
Is it Bettina Liano?
It is actually a Bettina Liano, yeah.
I know my labels.
Oh, I know you know your clothing.
How does it feel to be home? Is it fantastic to be back?
Yeah, fantastic to be home. Yeah, really quite fantastic actually.
And how long will you be back in Australia for this time?
I will be leaving for Europe in a couple of weeks, just for 2 weeks to do my first batch of promo for the French, because it's coming out in France. I'll be home for Christmas. My dad turned 70 this year, so it's very, very important for me to be home.
Are you ever worried about writing a personal album?
Yeah, I do worry about whether it connects and so forth, but you know what? I think the thing that you learn at the end of the day is that you learn to do what really makes you happy, because unless you do that, you're not doing it for you, you end up doing it for everybody else. And I really had to make this record for me, and no, I'm not frightened that it's really, really personal. If anything, it should give you an insight to what I'm like, and that's fine. You know, I've dealt with vulnerability as a performer all my life, and I don't really see why I should start creating pictures that really aren't indicative of me now. I kind of thought that this record kind of speaks for itself.
laughing. Look at this poor girl. She's so hungry. She's just sweltered all her weight off. You were 20 stones when you got here, weren't you? 20 pounds. And why didn't you bring food?
I don't know.
You got here like 6 o'clock to find this spot, didn't you?
No, I came at 12:30.
Now, what about you guys? You're all like squashing them here, aren't you?
Yeah. We're gonna talk back.
Yeah. Let's see. Nobody can breathe. Nobody can breathe. Unbelievable atmosphere here. We're going to come back right after the break. More screaming fans. I think I'm going deaf. You're watching Living It Loud, and we're certainly out at home.
This next track is a cover, and I think it was a big hit here. So if you know the words, I want you singing along, all right? I think some of you girlies down here might know. Here it is, it's Take My Breath Away. You guys take my breath away.
We're now here in the media room and it's all a bit exciting. We're about to talk to Emma Bunton, ex-Spice Girls. Please welcome Emma. She's a little bit nervous. Emma, are you getting used to having a solo career?
They're both so important to me. Obviously, as a solo artist, it's very rewarding when you go out there, and obviously with What Took You So Long being such a hit and people singing along to something that you've written is unbelievable. But with the girls, I have so much fun with them as well. So they're both very important, and I enjoy them both.
Do you think there should be more events like Rumba out here today?
Absolutely. I think just, great pop festival is amazing. The kids love it, which for me is why I do this thing, because I'm out there to make people happy and I enjoy making music, and I love pop music. I'm a pop girl, so I think there should be more pop festivals.
How are we doing? Are you having a good time? Fantastic. Right, this next track I'm going to sing was actually written for my mum.
Will there be any chance in the future that you'll be doing a concert in Australia?
Absolutely. I'm hoping to start touring next year, March, around Europe, and then hopefully come out to Australia kind of my summertime.
Since the breakup of Spice Girls, has there been any anger between the girls at all?
Absolutely not. The thing is with us, we are the best of friends and we really support each other with everything. And for me, that's like saying, am I competitive with my brothers? Absolutely no way. And also we're very different and we care about each other a lot. So for me to be competitive with one of the girls would absolutely not happen.
Well, thanks very much, Emma, for joining the show. You look fantastic. Just one last question. What's the label you're wearing?
These trousers actually were made for me the other weeks. You know, that's it. And I'm wearing Dolce & Gabbana boots on the top.
We're gonna sing. You're waiting up. Let's go.
I don't know the words. Getting all I'm laughing.
I can't hear ya.
Completely incomplete. I'll take your invitation. You take all of me now. I'm falling even more in love with you.
Hey, they're not bad.
More than I've held on to. I'm standing here until you make me blue. If I'm over here with you.
Oh, now you're too good. They're too good.
Australia's hottest male vocal group. Everybody, they've got the Midas touch of the music. You love them. They're the Australian super group you've been waiting for. Finally, they're here at Rumba.
Ching ching ching, ba 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 ching ching, ba ba da da today. Ba 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 ching ching ching, ba 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 ching ching, ba ba da da today. I see them make cry, I see them in the inside. They tell me I'm the one, I'm the rhythm gets on. I don't wanna be your baby girl. I don't wanna be your little girl. I just wanna be one space for me. Someone to tell with my own style, with my own soul. Ba 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 ching ching ching, ba 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 ching ching, ba ba da today. Ba 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 ching ching ching, ba 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 ching ching, ba ba da today.
Well, we're flicking back and through. Now I'm back in the media room and we're going to talk to Nelly. Now, Nelly, your clips are very interesting. Do you have any input?
Yeah, actually, I thought of going into video direction. Last video, I was completely involved on the phone with, like, you know, art directors and everything like that. This video is directed by Hype Williams for the clip for Shit on the Radio. It's not, the working title is On the Radio. And it's just very fun. I'm very visual. Growing up, I thought my brother was a visual one because he's a painter, but I'm discovering that I'm really visual too. So video making is fun.
So what do you like best? Do you like producing or do you like writing?
Writing is kind of like, it's funny, I laugh when people refer to writing as work. For me, it's like breathing, eating, drinking. It's like a way of life. It's like, for me, writing's a vacation. It's like any spare minute I get, I just grab my guitar and write a song. Or I'm on the plane and I put a beat on and write a rhyme or whatever. And I don't know. That's my favorite part. I love playing shows though too. Like I can't complain, you know. Everybody singing the words to your songs is quite fun because they're feeling the emotion you wrote when you the emotion you felt when you wrote it. I think you.
So now that you're in Australia, will you be playing in Melbourne at all?
Yeah, I have a gig tomorrow night in Melbourne at what club? What's the club
Mercury.
called? The Mercury, yes, for 1,000 of my closest, dearest friends in Melbourne.
Do you ever get into beatboxing?
I can't really beatbox, but you know what? My next video has some really, really good graffiti by this New York artist named Ernie Vallis, who's been in the scene for a while. And I'll just say the next video is very inspired by Beat Street and Wall Style.
Will you be doing any graffiti?
I'm not doing graffiti.
And what about breakdancing?
I can't really breakdance either, but I've done capoeira, which is Brazilian martial arts, which breakdancing looks like it has roots in capoeira.
I just went backstage with Abs from 5, and I just want to tell you all out there, when he goes solo, support him, because he's the best guy in the world. You can't explain how amazing he is. Long live 5! Yeah!
Another Chan's back here in the media room now. We're joined by famous pop star team Scandalous. Please, guys, welcome. Now, you recently went on a European trip. How was that?
Amazing. It was absolutely.
It was kind of like this kind of vibe every night for 40 days straight. So
This brought back
basically
memories
this one,
for me.
yeah.
No, but it was like 40 days and 36 shows. It was just
Huge
fantastic.
stadiums, like, you know, you had a dream of playing out. It was just amazing.
Did you actually compare stories and?
Oh yeah.
It was scary how similar we were.
Yeah, it was like a mirror image, another version of us. So it was good.
Which is really scary.
Do you think you're living in their shadow?
Well, they're taller than us.
No, we look up to Bono
He's the
a lot.
funny guy.
Because obviously, like, we were sitting at home watching the whole of their series, and yeah, and just to see them with their new image and new package, everyone loves them, we love them, and it's great. It's really
Yeah, and if every group finds a way to reinvent themselves and makes them more successful, I mean, why not do it? I mean,
Well, one final question, and thanks so much. Are you guys looking forward to the pop star stigma to wear off, so therefore your own careers can kick in?
So it's kind of good. I think that's definitely what happens. You know, that the emphasis goes off the pop stars, and you can kind of then become a music group, which is.
I think if you can hold it together, stay positive as well, and it almost becomes like an apprenticeship doing this, and then if you can stay together as a group. I've already said that, so I'm just like rehashing it. I'm trying to drive it home.
Well, thanks so much, guys. Now it's back to the mosh pit and see what's going down on the main stage. 9 o'clock in the morning.
About 9, yeah.
Aren't you tired yet?
Oh, yeah.
Are you like squashed or what here?
Yeah.
Yeah? You want to talk? I'm sure everybody will talk. Who's squashing you here?
Everyone back there, I flew all the way from New Zealand.
Just to be here?
No, just to see Jerry, Mandy and Kelly Heidi.
I didn't think this could happen in Toowoomba. And then I saw it on TV that night. It really opened my eyes.
Whenever the community comes to us and says we need your help, we do whatever we can to assist.
It is a great feeling to be able to help your neighbours, to be able to help your community.
Each Lions member and each Lions club in different parts of the country, we're totally different. But we have core values that are the same. They remain the same for any Lions member and any Lions club anywhere in not just Australia but around the world.
Anything that you can think of that you want to do and support and help, Lions are doing it right now somewhere in this world.
I think Lions need to tell their story. They need to let people know the amazing things that they do.
The three major streams that we have in Lions are the community service that we do for the public, health and medical research, and the disaster relief.
We're out there to help people. If you love helping people, get out and help. Join a Lions Club.
We started this project about 20 years ago. All this gear would normally go to the tip. We recycle it and give it to someone less fortunate and where it is needed in the world.
Being a Lion here in Australia means that I can make a difference to my community. But most importantly, it's inspiring other people to get out and be part of their community and make it a safer and a much happier and better place to live.
Childhood cancer, I've always been interested in cancer and small children from the time I first got cancer 30 years ago. Research is an indefinite item. You can't see it, but it helps so much.
I'm here managing the money and the relationships, but other people are out there raising funds and bringing in community support. Without all of us working together, we can't affect change.
2 more extra hands at any function, any working bee, anything we do, 2 more hands can help us raise more funds, can help us serve our community better.
I went to my Lions Club and I said, I got this idea and I think it's a little bit crazy, but I think we could raise some serious money doing it. And it was to run 100 kilometres. And the club said, okay, if you want to do this, whatever you need us to do, we'll be there 100%. And I'm pretty proud to say that together we raised just over $16,000. So we blew the target out of the water, and I think that was due to a lot of the support that I got.
Through my leadership training and all that, I've learned about thinking global and acting local, and Lions Club is definitely that kind of thing. They act within their communities, but the money that they raise can often end up in any corner of the world.
As an individual, I could only do so much, and whilst it was my burning desire to try and help these people, having an organisation such as the Lions family to call upon to support me and those people that were working with me just made it possible for us to achieve so much more.
You know, after the devastation, to come back into the community, you know, you were shattered by what you saw. You know, no police station, no post office, no petrol station, you know, no kindergarten. There was nothing here.
And all that water with an unstoppable.
I don't know that I've ever seen as much as arrived. There were fridges, washing machines, dryers. There was toasters, jugs, just everything.
to be invited to be a part of Lions just opened up a whole new world to me. A world that provided a structured organisation that could see that the hours that I volunteered could achieve so much more.
I think Lions is a wonderful organisation. The people in it have charity in their hearts.
I can go anywhere in this country, see somebody with a Lions badge, walk up to them and say good day. You got a friend.
Never once in my life had I had a group of people where I could go to, say anything, and know that no matter what, they would be there, they would stand by me.
It's the family. That's what we call it. It's the Lions family. Without Lions, I think I'd be lost now because they've been my life.
We work hard, but the most important thing is we have fun.
The fellowship of all the members of the club, the broader community, it's just a tremendous organisation to belong to. You know, I'll be here till I die.
It is extremely rewarding and gratifying to be a part of an organisation that can spread its support so far and wide.
More members means more hands, means more support to the community.
I would encourage everyone just to give it a go and see if it is for them, because the return that you get for giving to others is amazing.
Get out there, do something wonderful, be part of this fantastic organisation.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV. Live streamed from Echuca each week, MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
we've got a tram shunting at Middleborough Road, which is pretty rare. At least it's rare for me to see anyway.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, it's MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
They say there's a chance I could die in a car crash, maybe even from heart disease, maybe even skin cancer.
I could die in a work-related accident, or I could die in a fight.
The fact is, the biggest cause of death for men in my age group is suicide.
Please don't let this happen to me.
You can do something. Lifeline believes that suicide is mostly preventable. Help us save lives. Find out what you can do at lifeline.org.au.
Video is about to close operations for tonight, but we'll be back with you next Monday evening. In the meantime, here is a selection of programs that will be seen on our next scheduled web stream. You're welcome to visit our website at MELfeed.video for further details of this project. Until next time, from all of us here at MELfeed.video, we wish you a very good night.
Thank you.